There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamma Mia podcast.
Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on.
I'm Holly Wainwright and it's Friday.
Sorry.
It's your turn.
I'd like to apologise for all of us, but especially Holly.
Hello and welcome to Mamma Mia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 24th of May. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens.
And on today's show, do cheating husbands and wives deserve to be outed? Inside the hack that exposed a nation of adulterers. Also, a tiny but mighty beauty product, a reformed canceller, and an eyeshadow. I thought eyeshadows had been cancelled.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Your recommendations for the weekend. Also, Mia staged a walkout, I unplugged, and Jessie wants to talk about a fully conscious baby. That is our best and worst of the week. But first, Mia Freedman.
In case you missed it, you can now treat irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, with poo transplants. Actually, they're called fecal transplants in pill form.
Doesn't make it better.
I don't
Doesn't.
understand.
So it's very unlike me because I usually don't like poo stories, but I've been interested in this idea of fecal transplants, but I always assumed that they were a rectal situation. However, in a new documentary called Hack Your Health, The Secrets of Your Gut, that was released this week, there's a woman called Danielle Kopke who attempts to rebalance the bacteria in her gut because that causes irritable bowel syndrome for her by ingesting fecal transplant pills with fecal donations from her brother's stools.
I would rather a tummy ache any day of the week. Give me cramps, give me diarrhea, give me constipation. I don't need to swallow fecal matter.
This is one of Mia's Roman empires. She has brought up fecal transplants before, and Out Louders have told us that they are massively helpful if you struggle a lot with gut issues.
Really?
But I didn't know you got them from a specific person.
Neither did I. I guess it would be like an organ donation that someone who shares some DNA with you in terms of a close relative would be more compatible with your fecal matter. Danielle has had a difficult time. And in all seriousness, if you've got irritable bowel syndrome, it is terrible because it causes things like indigestion. This woman
Terrible
had
stomach cramps.
Yes.
I have had it.
Trapped gas, severe constipation. And after 5 years of doctor's appointments and antibiotics that didn't work, she turned to this idea of a fecal transplant. And according to Johns Hopkins Medicine, this procedure involves collecting feces from a healthy donor and introducing them, plural, into an ill patient's gastrointestinal tract. As I said, I always thought this went up through the rectum.
I thought it was like a surgery and they put it in the bowel that way.
I kind of thought that too.
Yeah.
But no, it's a pill, which is easier, and you just eat it.
This is the weirdest in case you missed it we've ever had.
Look, I think it's the kind of thing that's interesting to bring up in conversation when conversation is boring.
Well, I think I would like Out Louders to tell me if they plan on bringing this up in conversation over the weekend.
Yes. Do you want to talk about the poo pills over the barbecue?
This hack is one of the largest data breaches in the world.
If that information got out, this would ruin a lot of people's lives.
Everyone was looking for dirt, looking for names that they recognized.
And then name after name started coming out.
You had celebrities being disgraced.
It was an absolute witch hunt.
I had no idea what was coming.
The number one show on Netflix right now is a documentary called Ashley Madison, Sex, Lies and Scandal. And it's all about the Canadian online dating service marketed to adults who are married but fancy an affair. Their tagline is, "Life is short, have an affair."
Is it still going?
It is still going. It's owned by a different company for reasons that will become clear. But first thing I did, ashleymadison.com, while watching this documentary, it's there. You can.
Do you remember
I didn't know. I
jingle?
do remember. No.
It went, "I'm looking for someone who's not my wife." Isn't that how it goes? I think we might have it.
I'm looking for someone other than my wife.
Other than my wife.
Ashley Madison's right. I'm looking for someone other than
I would listen to that on Spotify. It's beautiful.
It's a banger.
I'm going to make that my ringtone.
And the reason it's called Ashley Madison is because they were at the time the two most popular girls' names, and they thought that it felt elite. It felt a bit upper class. Ashley Madison was meant to feel premium and like you would find some lovely ladies on there. It was founded in 2002. Cast your mind back. Online dating, not really a thing in 2002. It was
very early days.
Very, very early days. And it grew fast. By 2015, they had 37 million users across 40 countries. And critical to their appeal all over their website was like, security, we've won every test in security. I must say, in 2002, even in 2015, I was not thinking about internet security.
Was it just for married people, or could anyone go on it who wanted to have an affair with a married person?
It was really just for married people. So it was the idea.
For men and women who wanted to have
Yes.
affairs.
So I'm a man and I'm like, oh, I want to have an affair. And I would log on and I'd go, oh, the woman next door wants to have an affair too.
Was the idea that it'll also be safer because if you're having an affair with someone else who's married, you're both incentivized to keep a lid on it?
Yes. And it was clearly just for an affair. And they said their biggest competitor was the workplace, because the workplace is where a lot of people meet each other for affairs, but a lot more dangerous. Whereas this was like, it's very clear about what we want. You could put your sexual fantasies on there. You could be completely candid about what you wanted. And the way it worked too was that men had to pay for every message they sent. They would spend credits, women free. And that was the way that they attempted to keep the gender balance in check. You could also pay a bit more money to have all your details fully wiped from the site. If you were like, I never want anyone to know I'm on it, you would pay this kind of premium. 37 million people are using the site.
37 million people.
And then in 2015, Ashley Madison is blackmailed. And this group of hackers called the Impact Team say, delete your website, which at this point I think was making hundreds of millions of dollars a month. They were just about to go public.
And who owned it? Ashley
Let
Madison.
me work out what
Private
they were called.
company.
A private company,
I think they're called Ruby Life.
I remember the guy that was sort of the face of it, and then he and his wife became the face of it. She never looked very happy about it. And he would say, we've got a monogamous relationship, but we are actually helping couples stay married. I couldn't work out how.
Yeah.
But
And he was actually
can work
almost
out how.
ahead of his time in terms of saying people have always cheated since the beginning of time. If you think that people aren't cheating on each other all over the place right now, the fact they've got that many people signing up means that this is an open secret. This is about saying I have sexual fantasies outside the parameters of my monogamous relationship, and this is going to keep our marriage healthy. The irony was that he was sitting there saying, I'm monogamous. He used his wife's face as part of a lot of the campaign. Anyway, let's just say the hacker also released his private emails, and that was not true.
Not so monogamous after all.
Really? Yes.
No.
And so this Impact Team, the hackers, came out and said, we are going to publish all the details unless you delete your website. And Ashley Madison was like, absolutely not.
so they weren't asking for money. It wasn't
No.
extortion.
No, they didn't want money. They said delete it. And this was the thing, is that everyone hated Ashley Madison.
Except the people who are using it.
Except the people who were using it. And so they were like, it could be a pissed off spouse. It could be.
Oh, yeah.
Even culturally, it was incredibly upsetting. Every talk show host was going, how do you live with yourself that you own this unethical website?
So you're encouraging secrecy?
I'm encouraging secrecy, yes, but I'm not necessarily encouraging infidelity. I don't think it needs all that much encouragement.
How are
in
you not
today's
encouraging
society.
infidelity?
Well, I think long before I launched Ashley Madison, there were affairs, and long after I'm gone, there'll be affairs. And so what I'm just trying to do is help people have the more perfect affair.
I've just started watching the documentary, and they talk about how they were just minting money and how they ran into a lot of trouble advertising because it's kind of like solicitation or moral, and people were rejecting their ads. So what they did was to start using this guy, Noel Biederman, who was the CEO
He was
or something.
CEO, yeah.
And so they started just putting him out in the media. So they got all of this
Great
publicity
story.
for free. And then when they wanted to ratchet that up a bit, they included his wife as well. So every talk show, every journalist wanted to interview them and have them on. And that gave so much publicity
Yeah,
to the
'cause
site. And so it was free marketing.
You could be tut, 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 and then you
clever.
were just typing Ashley Madison into your
Yeah.
browser and off you go.
And it worked.
And in India, they had like a campaign around your parents arranged your marriage.
Let us arrange.
Let us
Yeah.
arrange your affair.
So
Very
messed
clever,
up.
really clever.
Clever.
I think the tagline "Life is short, have an affair" is a really, really good tagline.
It got a lot of people in.
Yes.
And look, when this Impact Team said we're going to release details, it wasn't just names and email addresses. It was credit card details, home addresses, and your sexual fantasies that you put into the website. Long story short, they did release all of those details. And there were politicians, actors, reality stars, influencers.
Where did they put them?
They put them on the dark web. And this is something...
Was the dark web a place back then?
It was, right? And it's a place that the average person once the data was leaked, the average person probably wouldn't have been able to access it.
How
If
do
you
you
wanted
get to
to
the dark
check,
web?
if you wanted to check if your husband was on it, you probably couldn't. But then, of course, what
I've always
happened?
wondered, haven't you? Is it like Hogwarts?
It's like
where
another
you have
browser.
to run, you go to a train station and then you run through an invisible door.
It's a lot of steps, but the people who can access the dark web are journalists. So journalists went, what is in the public interest here? And they went through and they went, the mayor of blah is here.
Yeah.
And then they
a preacher is here, a TV evangelist is here.
And then, of course, before long, there was a database set up and you could type in a name and it would tell you whether they were in it.
Were there many celebrities?
Nicole Snooki Polizzi's husband, Gianni Laval's email was reportedly found linked to the cheating site.
The reality television star Josh Duggar admits now he cheated on his wife.
Real Housewives of New York stars Kristen Tackman's husband, Josh, has admitted he did indeed sign up for what Ashley Madison was selling.
The Duggars.
Yeah, the Duggars.
So it was more the people who were hypocrites. So the people who had a public profile and were putting out there about family values and their brand or their
that's the
a politician.
justification.
Yeah,
Right? That's the justification.
Yeah. Or if you're on a
The moral
reality show
justification.
and it was like, people would be interested in this. And I was looking at it thinking about the ethics of this information shouldn't be public anyway and we're just mining it. But the fallout, which is something I didn't think at the time, was devastating. Some people took their own lives. It destroyed marriages. People lost their jobs. As I said, the emails of the CEO were made public and he was cheating. He lost his job. It was catastrophic.
Hang on, why would he lose his job at Ashley Madison if he was cheating? Isn't that like a job requirement?
Because some of the things he was doing as well, I don't know if you
I think it was unsavoury, right? It was young. He was going after sort of young women. Like it was just a bit of a bad look.
But he was also getting people to pay an additional fee to go, I'm going to remove all your details.
Yeah.
And they were taking that money and not doing a thing, not even pretending to wipe something. That was snake oil. That was an absolute fake.
And didn't they also, the women on it were not real? Is that a true thing?
Quite a lot of them were bots.
Yes. So how it worked is that you would get on as a man and then you'd be like, oh my goodness, there's heaps of women on here.
Beautiful women.
And then the woman would often reach out to you first and then you had to pay to reply to her and then you'd go back and forth and back and forth. And then when they traced all the IP addresses, which they could do because of the hack, they went, that's weird. There were hundreds of thousands of women at the Ashley Madison office, speaking to men.
So were any of the women real?
Some were, but in the hack, there were no prominent women that came out. Mm-hmm. And what I found interesting about that is actually the impact of how men see women, right? So if I'm a man who wants to have an affair and I get onto the internet and I'm led to believe by bots that every woman is just dying to have an affair with me and is hypersexual and is asking for, really full-on things and is sending me sexual messages, then I kind of assume that's how all women are.
But also they could never meet up, right?
Yes.
Now I understand. So a lot of the men I remember at the time said, I never did anything.
Yeah.
Is that because you can't do anything with the bot? So the business model was to just engage these men in conversation, get them to send lots of messages, each one of which they had to pay money for.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone on the doco who actually had an affair facilitated by Ashley Madison?
I think that there is one couple, but I think they both knew that the other person was doing it. There was one man who was found out. It doesn't say whether he did it. The others were just talking to people. I'm sure that there were affairs happening all the time.
Because it sounds almost quaint, right? To me, in this day and age, it sounds almost quaint that there was this special place on the internet for people who wanted to cheat on their partners and everyone was like, when I am informed by very good sources that mainstream dating sites are quite full of married men hiding behind sunglasses and large fish.
Really?
So it's not exactly like these days. It's we solved that moral issue of men wanting to have sex outside of their marriages or women wanting to have sex outside of their marriages by discrediting this site. It's just now it's everywhere all the time.
But do you think that just because people are going to have affairs anyway, that you normalize? I mean, there's a view in which you can look at Ashley Madison and what they did and go, You blew up families.
You facilitated.
You
They
facilitated.
didn't blow up families.
But if you've got life is short, have an affair, you're selling Ashley Madison, you're also selling infidelity.
And you're recruiting for infidelity,
the people
aren't you?
having affairs are blowing up their own lives. It's not Ashley Madison's fault.
That's what Noel Biderman was saying in his interviews.
Well, I kind of have some sympathy for it. Like, the thing that's interesting about Ashley Madison is how brazen it is, right? So the tagline, life is short, have an affair, I'm looking for someone who's not my wife. It's just genius marketing, but they're not inventing infidelity. As it turns out, they weren't even actually making any more of it happen than was actually happening anyway, because most of the women didn't even exist. I think it's really interesting, our reaction to it, because, as I say, people will find ways to do this anyway. But if you put a name on it and you're blatant about it, then suddenly it's your fault. You know, I don't think for a second that those men's details should have been made public. I don't think for a second that, all of the fallout from that, obviously the marriage is breaking up.
By the hacker or by the media?
Either or. Like, I think that that's kind of despicable. I really do. Because I think that ultimately this is just what people are doing. And we're all very comfortable if we can pretend that it's not happening, but it's happening.
I agree, because I look back at that time and I was in my early 20s or mid-20s, and I remember watching it and thinking, I hate the website. I completely judged everyone who was on it. And I thought, well, it's Schadenfreude. You deserve it. You made a terrible decision.
Oh, you mean when all their
it was
details
leaked?
were
I had
leaked?
no empathy for the people whose details were leaked. And you'd see some dodgy politician and I was like, yeah, could have guessed it. Watching this documentary, I felt so ashamed of myself that was how I thought of it. I felt that the media needs like a reckoning in terms of their ethics with this, but also I remember there was the leaks of the nude photos of celebrities and how we are implicated in how much we talk about and publicize hacks that release people's personal and private information. And without the media, it's actually not as impactful.
What about all the Brittany Higgins text messages and all those recordings that were leaked?
Yeah, that never should have been leaked.
Yeah,
and then the
agreed.
media picking up on it. Like, the fact that there's no assumption of privacy and we shouldn't have access to this anyway. Yeah, I was just really shocked that was my perspective.
Here's something I don't understand, back to the Ashley Madison of it all. If I'm suspecting that my partner's having an affair, I can go on to Tinder, Bumble, any of those places and see if I can find him, right, behind his fish. Can I go on to Ashley Madison in the day and now also and look for him? Because I can browse that site, right?
No, usually those sites you have to join and create a profile before you get to do searches. And look for people.
Because I guess what I'm getting to is the nature of it is how private is it really? Like, I think that the leaks and the publication of all those people's details that had all these awful implications is abhorrent. But how private is it really? If I think my partners might be on Ashley Madison, I can go on and make a fake profile and go and find him. If I want to, I know stories of people who are like, I saw your partner on Tinder. Like, you know what I mean? It's not private.
So is it considered the public domain or the private domain, being on a dating site or being on Ashley Madison? I hadn't thought of that before.
Well, I think it's to do with the terms and conditions too, right? Like, you sign up to something, and if you're signing up saying that your information is going to be kept private, they had some loophole with your credit card details, right? Because there's a wife going through often and going, hang on, what's this?
I think they just mark it as something else.
Well, they would often call the Ashley Madison office and be like, hey, just wondering, is this Ashley Madison? And they'd be like, we're just this group. We could be any number of things. Yes, exactly. We could be any number of things. But I think that there was an assumption in the terms and conditions of privacy, but that's a very good point.
I can go and find out, because there's a difference between an illegal breach and just a bit of snooping turning something up, right?
And it's different to, like, if there was a breach of Medicare or if a breach of Optus when that happened and all of those details came out. That's different. I couldn't have logged on to Optus, and, for example, and found your details. But you're right, whole Ashley Madison's different.
It's sort of like OnlyFans. In that OnlyFans, I mean, that exists behind a paywall, but there is a fair and ethical understanding that if I am charging people for my content, then you don't then get to share my sexual fantasies, my nudes, my all of that, because it's understood to be a private place. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know if there are any private places on the internet.
Well, that's one of the things that's interesting, right? And again, it's back to this idea of we'll all like to clutch our pearls about Ashley Madison, but if you're literally going on there to find people who want to do the things that you want to do, it's a public marketplace.
There was a woman in it and her husband was found to be on it, and she said something I can't stop thinking about, which is there's a list that we would all be found to be on that we wouldn't want to be made public. And this was like the scarlet letter, like marking all of these people. But whether it's your WhatsApp messages, whether it's your text messages, whether it's phone calls you've had, whether it like it's just very there by the grace of God go out. Like
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That everybody's got secrets, or not even secrets, but just things that are private and things that are public. And this was probably the first example of the internet blurring that line.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about this is that I was reading that it's unusual for, apparently cybersecurity experts say, for hackers to just come in and do one thing and never hack before and never hack again. Like this impact group has never been seen or heard from again, whoever it is, if it is in fact a group or an individual. And so it was a real hit job.
Yeah.
It was a very targeted hit job.
And there are theories that it was an insider. But it does just remind you that whether it's like text messages, you were just saying before, nothing on the internet is private. If that's true, we are all fucked.
That's true.
Yes.
Completely fucked.
What you said about the shame, I feel that about going and looking at Jennifer Lawrence's boobs. Remember when all those nude photos, I can't remember what it was, of all these different celebrities appeared online? And again, it seems a bit quaint these days. Now we understand things like image-based abuse and consent. But back then it was like it started a whole big thing where we blamed. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, well, they just shouldn't have taken the pictures. You know, I think we've come a long way in what we understand about people's privacy. And I do feel bad that I looked at Jennifer Lawrence's boobs. We kind of all did.
Speak for yourself, my friend. I remember looking at those pictures taken over the back fence when Gwyneth Paltrow and Brad Pitt were dating.
I bought those pictures and republished them on Cosmo.
Yes, right.
And I got a letter from Brad Pitt's lawyer.
Oh, well, I'm not surprised, although he did look amazing. My one and only dip into online dating, which is obviously quite a long time ago now, given that Brent and I have been together for nearly 20 years, I was on RSVP.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which was like one of the first, it feels very analog now, sites.
Did you have to fax your picture to them?
There is no question that the guy that I was sort of seeing then, like he was so married.
Really?
Like with hindsight, he was so
What were
married.
the signs?
Mysteriously unavailable a lot of the time. He had this very possessive flatmate who meant that I wouldn't be able to go back to his house.
May have been a wife or baby.
Exactly. And this is what I mean. Like, this stuff exists all the time. You know, people who are on dating sites often get calls saying, I think you're dating my boyfriend. As we know, there are whole Facebook groups devoted to that. Even when I was young before this, in the IRL world, I dated a guy for ages who I had no idea he lived with his girlfriend because, again, it was his flatmate's toothbrush in the thing on the sink. Like, this stuff happens. Like I think
know, but at least try and hide. I'm not into normalizing.
This is very Catholic of you that you're like, I know it happens, but you have to lie about it.
You have to lie about it because you know what? Have an open relationship. I'm happy for that. But the premise of Ashley Madison was you will lie to your wife and we'll keep that lie for you.
Yeah.
And that makes me uncomfortable.
And we'll make money out of it. It's grubby as all hell. But I just also think that in some ways I admire the upfrontness of it and the conversations that it was pushing to say, well, you might love your wife very much but want to have sex with other people. We can sort that out for you.
I'm looking for someone other than my wife.
Other than my wife.
Mamma Mia out loud.
I'm looking for someone other than my wife.
Okay, it's time for our best and worst. No, it's not. It's time for our recommendations. Or is it time for our best and worst? How long have I been doing this show? What's wrong with us this week?
Who's doing what this time?
I'm sorry. We've been on the road for 3 weeks. We still haven't come down since the tour.
We're very confused. It's me. It's me. Recommendations. Sorry.
Have you got one?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
Shall I start? I have a very shallow recommendation. I could be recommending you David Beckham on Smartless, but I'm not going to. although he is charming.
Have you started listening?
Oh, I've listened.
And is it worth listening?
He's just the best. I just love David
All right,
Beckham.
I'll listen to that.
Speaking of cheating husbands, allegedly, I could be recommending How Much I'm Loving Alone, Australia, season 2.
Oh, yep.
Great. It's a great show. But I'm not recommending either of those two things because a beauty product has changed my life. I like to paint my nails. I'm not very good at it, but I don't have time to go to salons. I like to do it myself. And I hate taking nail polish off. And then I went to Chemist Warehouse. I spent $5 on this thing called Sally Hansen Instant Nail Polish Remover. I know that doesn't sound exciting. Holly, did you know that nail polish remover existed? It's the mechanism. So it's like a little vitamin jar and you unscrew the lid and there's a sponge inside and you dip your finger into the sponge, you turn it around once, you pull it out and your bright red nail polish has gone. And you do it again.
Does it run all over your finger?
I'm doing the motions. You put your finger in, you turn it round, it's gone.
I don't understand.
I like that.
Doesn't run all over your finger.
You don't have to faff around with
You're
a
not
bottle
using
or a
toilet
copy
paper
pad,
that then
toilet
goes
paper.
all over the floor.
It is so easy. It is so fast. It has changed my life. There is only one flaw, and that's that you can't do it with your toes, and I know because I've tried.
With your little toe?
I tried to get a toe in there, twisted around, didn't work. But if you, like me, sometimes struggle with nail polish removal and how annoying it is and how many bits of scrunched up toilet paper you have to use and all that stuff, get yourself some Sally Hansen Instant Nail Polish Remover. It's the one in the jar. $5.
I can't believe that exists.
Wow. Well, I'm going to lift the tone and recommend a book to read after you've taken it off your nail polish.
Sorry.
Don't apologise. I'm stoked. I'm running out to buy one of those. Nellie Bowles is one of my favourite writers on the internet. She does a brilliant Substack newsletter called Thank God It's Friday. And she's a former New York Times reporter. She's written her first book. It's nonfiction. It's called The Morning After the Revolution. And I'll read you the blurb. It says, as a Hillary voter, a New York Times reporter and frequent attendee at her local gay bars, Nellie Bowles fit right in with her San Francisco neighbours and friends until she started questioning whether the progressive movement she knew and loved was actually helping people. When her colleagues suggested that asking such questions meant that she was on the wrong side of history, Bowles did what any reporter worth her salt would do. She started investigating for herself. The answers she found were stranger and funnier than she expected. So she talks about basically how she stopped being woke. She went from being like a New York dwelling, New York Times reporting lesbian in her late 20s. She was like this cool kid at the New York Times. And then she started dating a woman who was also working on the New York Times, who was an opinion columnist back then. Her name's Barry Weiss, who was seen as being very controversial. And that sort of started her questioning a whole bunch of stuff. And also when she kept being asked to cancel people, and she's like, I don't want to keep cancelling people. Like, she loved it at first. She loved cancelling people. But then she's like, maybe I don't want to do that anymore.
She said it ended with a tweet, like there was someone she had to cancel because they published the wrong op-ed, and it was like, come on, it's your turn. And when she realised she couldn't do it, she just went, I've seen the limits of this movement, and I
So she's written about it. I'm loving it. I'm listening to it actually as an audiobook, but she's such a great writer. It's called Morning After the Revolution by Nellie Bowles, and I'm hoping to have her on No Filter pretty soon.
And she also did an interview with Barry Weiss on Honestly last week, and
They're
I really
married
enjoyed
now,
that.
and they've got a kid, and I think another one on the way.
Yeah. My recommendation is also really highbrow because obviously I'm only watching documentaries, Ashley Madison. I also watched Woodstock 99 over the weekend.
I love that these are your comfort watches. You know, you're tired, you've got a little demanding kid, and you're like, I know what I want to do to relax. I'm going to watch something really
learn something new.
In-depth and miserable about 9/11.
Yes. Turning Point. Great documentary about 9/11.
I can't watch fiction or read fiction when I'm like busy or stressed or overwhelmed.
I am also
or tired.
reading fiction, but it's Lisa Jewell, and I've banned myself from recommending her because I'm just there. If you're wondering what I'm reading,
she's ruined us.
She's ruined us all. I am recommending an eyeshadow, which allegedly Gen Z has tried to cancel. I don't care.
You can't have eyeshadow cancelled because I don't know if all the Outlouders know this, but Jessie Stevens has the best eyelids in the world.
Yeah,
I love an eye.
She's got a lot of eyelid real estate.
And she's really good at eyeshadow.
I love eyeshadow. Mecca Max has Zoom Shadow Stick Matte sticks. They're $20. They are completely foolproof. So if you're someone who's like, I don't know about the blending and I don't know where I'm meant to put it and do I need lots and lots of colours, the kind of 5 years ago eyeshadow where it was very complicated and you needed
it's like an
to do
eyeliner and an eyeshadow had a baby.
Yes, exactly right. I got it in plum, which is great if you've got, well, actually any colour eyes. It's like a deep purpley colour. Anyway, and you just put it on and it just brightens. Great for winter, just very brightening. And you can put a little bit under your eye too. And it just looks like you've had your makeup done.
Does plum not look like you've got conjunctivitis?
No. It's like deeper than that. It's not like a light pink.
So it's like a burgundy.
It's not like pink eye. It's like a burgundy. It really makes your eyes pop.
I do love an eyeshadow stick
I
rather
love
than
an
nail
eyeshadow stick.
powder and
very
brush.
pigmented and, very poppy.
I've got a few of those. I've got one in khaki.
Yep.
They do one in navy, Holly. Which
Navy's
is
great.
like
And I have been getting my makeup done a bit lately and every makeup artist uses them, which is always a very good endorsement. So they've got great colours. Go and try them out. They're lots of fun. Mecca Max Zoom Shadow Stick Matte, $20.
Outlouders, if you want to listen to us every day of the week, you can get access to exclusive segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays by becoming a Mamma Mia subscriber. Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe and support us, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers. It's time for Best and Worst, our non-judgmental safe space where we reflect on a high and a low of the week. It doesn't necessarily have to be the high and the low, just to disclaim that for ourselves. Holly, what was your worst this week?
My worst and best are like the flip side of the same coin. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
So we had, as we discussed last week, a really big week. We did our final live show and it was so much fun, and thank you to all the Outlouders who came. It's been a lot, right? And we also launched Mid, which is the new podcast that I've been working on, and that was a lot. And it was a big week of lots and lots of
internet drama,
lots of things going on. And I was really tired on Friday. No surprises there. And I thought, I'm going to unplug for the weekend, right? And I very rarely do. I'm going to put my phone in a drawer. And I'm just going to leave my phone in the drawer. The worst is that when I told my 11-year-old son that I was going to do that, he said, as if you're going to do that.
He's so wise.
And he went, wow. And he was really excited. That was the worst bit.
And then you look down at your hand and you realise you'd already picked it back up again. You're like, damn it.
He was like, yes. But he was kind of disbelieving, but he was also really like, yes. And then I felt really bad because... because
you're a shit mum.
Because I'm a shit mum, and he's trying to tell me some long convoluted story about some new video game. I mean, yeah, A2, Billy. Look, check your own backyard first. Some new video game he's got, and I'm just like, oh my God, looking at Instagram. Anyway, so the worst was the fact that no one in my family thought I could do it because they all think I'm phone addicted. And I say, you should meet Mia. Anyway.
And Mia always says you should meet Jessie, and then we get stuck.
So true.
My best was my offline weekend. Far out, it was great. Obviously I did pick it up a little bit to look at the news and to reply to text messages and make a couple of, arrangements that had to be made. But generally speaking, I did not do what I often do, which is lie in bed and scroll, check my DMs a lot, just pick it up for distraction. And it was great. I felt really refreshed by the end of the weekend, untired on a different level. And I did all the boring things. I touched grass.
What's that like?
Got some of my book rewrites
What's
done.
grass like?
I took the kids to the movies again, 2 weekends in a row of
What'd you see?
IRL. Oh, the new Ryan Reynolds one, If, The Imaginary Friends.
Oh, that looks...
It's a kids' movie.
Okay.
It was fun. It was actually quite classy. The young girl in it's really good. Anyway, I did in real life things. It made me feel good, and that is my smug best for the week. Mia, are you still attached to your phone at all times?
Well, yes, but my worst was a little bit the same. So on Friday after the show and then getting to the weekend, I just felt so sick of myself. There's no other way to put it. I felt I've got a massive, massive bandwidth for information, feedback, stimulation, pictures, texts, conversation, communicating with Outlouders, with people who are DMing, just everything, consuming stuff. And I actually just felt quite sick. All I can think about is like when you went to the Easter show and you got too many show bags and ate too much fairy floss and you actually feel quite sick, like you've been on a ride. I felt almost disoriented. And I think a lot of it was, Thursday night was amazing. We played a home crowd in Sydney. We had family and friends and Mamma Mia people back after the show to have drinks. It was the end of the tour. We were so relieved that we got there without any of us getting sick and that it had been such a big success. People said lovely things, but it was too much. I almost just got full. I don't know if you guys felt this way because I couldn't even communicate with you two, but I was thinking, just buckle up because I'm about to compare myself to Taylor Swift. I was thinking, how does she do it? Like that amount of focus of just everybody focused on you. And it's a very lovely thing going onto a stage and having thousands of people scream and cheer and stuff for you. But it's also a little bit of a head fuck.
I reckon she would do it.
It's not normal.
I think she meditates.
By disconnecting on the weekends.
Yeah.
Because I reckon that her job while she's touring is to go and do the show. Go and do the show. Go and do the show. Don't engage with all the stuff around the show. Don't engage with all the feedback that's coming your way. Don't engage with all the people telling you you're great or you're the devil or whatever it is. I reckon she just, I'm in my lane. I'm hitting my marks. I do listen to some of her songs. I can do it with a broken heart.
Lights, camera, bitch, smile.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I think.
So, yeah, my worst is being sick of myself. I'm better now. I've detoxed. Now I think I'm really into myself again. No. My best is a little bit related. On Sunday, I had a completely unstructured day. I decided that I wanted to go up to Westfield to do something. I wanted to go up to Westfield Bondi Junction to support the retailers. I had something to buy. There was a sale at a toy store that I like up there and I wanted to go and get something for Luna. And I wanted to go up to Bondi Junction and I decided to just go and I just realised I didn't have to ask anyone, tell anyone, account for my time, be back by a certain time. My children are at the age where I don't even know if they were home, but they don't really need me on the weekend. My husband was busy doing something and I literally could not quite believe the freedom. Like I almost did one of those heel clicks that Dorothy does when she skips down the yellow brick road. I felt that free, that I just walked out. Yeah. And I think it was also because we've been so busy the last few weeks and we've had every minute accounted for and it's like I've got to prepare, I've got to unpack, I've got to repack, I've got to think, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It felt like time opened up and I just had I popped through this little portal and it just felt very, very freeing.
Meanwhile, over at the other end of the parenting trenches, Jessie.
My worst is that Luna is sick. And look, that's all very boring. No one needs to hear about sick kids. But
darling.
Last night.
Is she okay?
She's fine. She's absolutely fine. But, it screws up with sleep and all that kind of stuff. And she was unwell at 3:00 in the morning last night. And knowing that you've got to be at work the next day, that you've got to be on, that you've got to be able to string a sentence together. And then I've got these events for Sydney Writers Festival. And I was like, I actually have to be stringing a sentence together at 8:00 tomorrow night on barely any sleep. And I felt my body also trying to fight off whatever she's got, which is just like a secondary issue.
We've all been fighting.
And
some germs off this week.
And giving her, and also wanting to be with her and everything when she's sick. But just so brutal. And then I've just felt like today I'm operating at like 25%. You can't think of the word for anything. You're just very like.
That's how I feel all the time.
Oh my, it's so.
Yeah, sleep deprivation. So I forgot that when you feel like actually empty in your body and you almost, it's like a nauseous, like a high level.
You're not plugged into your own life. You're just like, I find that when I'm tired as well, I get really easily bored because I have no energy to pass the time. So it's like I just have to sit there sad because I'm just so tired. I can't do anything.
I can't even pick up a phone.
I can't even pick up my phone. Anyway, my best is so weird, but stay with me.
Is it the food I dropped off to you yesterday?
My mother-in-law dropped off a package and she dropped off a sandwich,
Me
a
a
brownie.
snow globe.
I did. And
you
also,
know what else? A little gift for Luna.
I love how I've just appointed myself as her best. She had no intention of that being her best.
Do you remember the snow globe conversation from Wednesday?
Fair enough. Jessie, what was your actual
Jessie's
best?
Snow globe.
I know.
My best, and it's because I think it will make you happy too. Have you seen the fully conscious baby on TikTok?
No.
What's a fully conscious baby?
Okay. There is this viral video going around on TikTok where a mother walks in and goes,
"Who wants to go to the Four Seasons Orlando?"
Me.
There's a toddler who's maybe like 4, and then there's a baby who honestly looks 1 and is just sitting on the dad's hip. And this baby just goes, me, and like, he puts his hand up and he's just completely, you know, when you see a baby who's so much more conscious than they ought to be at that age.
Yeah.
And the internet, TikTok, has lost its mind because they're like, that baby is a sentient adult. Like, why is that baby who's completely bald, who looks like a baby, who's wearing a nappy, everything, has better fine motor skills than you or I? And it's given way to this fully conscious baby TikTok where people are sharing their stories and experiences of being with infants who reveal themselves to be way more advanced than they actually are.
Fun.
So they'll be sitting with a baby, like someone was saying at a barbecue or whatever, and they're like, oh, the baby can say mama and dada, and then leaves, and then the baby's like, food, give me food.
The baby's like, sausage.
I want a sausage. And the stories are just so good. They're so funny. Here's a little bit of the trend that's going around.
What's so funny about the fully conscious baby is that nobody's really talking about the ramifications of what's about to happen. That baby is fully sentient. It's fully conscious, and it is the start of a new evolution of humans that will begin once he starts procreating. We are in a new age of super intelligent life forms, and we're sitting here having laughs and laughing at and kikiing it up. We don't even know what we've just started. We don't know what's to come.
Oh, I like that.
It's so random.
If you feel like you're not ready to say goodbye to us yet, then why not check out our episodes from earlier in the week in case you missed them. On Monday, we spoke about P. Diddy's apology video and unpacked that after that awful video surfaced where he assaulted his girlfriend from 2016. We talked about that. We unpacked it.
On Wednesday, we discussed why everyone is obsessed with their own snow globes. See Mia Freedman. And if you want to listen to our subscriber episodes this week, we had a big chat about Bridgerton on Tuesday. So if you're binging that this weekend, then make sure you go and listen to that. And then on Thursday, Jessie wasn't with us. Mia and I had a big chat about therapy, where Mia told me why she's stopping and told me why I need to start.
So good.
A link to all those episodes are in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to Mamma Mia Out Loud. Thanks to you, this podcast has had 101 million downloads.
This episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman, with audio production by Leah Porges. Bye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamma Mia subscribers listening. If you love the show and you want to support us, subscribing to Mamma Mia is the very best way to do it. There's a link in the episode description.